It's time to continue on with Nomad. Well, hey guys, and welcome back. So before we move on with Nomad, I did want to make mention of one modification I had to make to this part. This is the piece that slides into the bottom of Nomad, and as you can see, it is not going to do that. And the reason why is that this warped and expanded. So I decided to try to create one out of styrene plastic, or at least a bottom piece out of styrene. I think this might have worked okay, but before proceeding on with this, I wanted to give it one more shot and reprint it. And what I did here was I made it smaller, and I took the chance of not putting any interior supports at all because it's just a basic shape. I figured it would print without a lot of support on the inside, and it worked out okay. So this now will slide directly in completely rather than leaving this separation here, and I'm okay with that. So that's what I'm going to do with this, is proceed with this piece. Now, a quick word about why this might have happened. First of all, I am using water washable resin, and some people will tell you right off the bat, that's the reason why he had a problem. There are some people who won't even bother using water washable because people do claim that this happens consistently with this product. And there is one gentleman on the Elegumars Facebook page that claimed that if you are using water washable and the print is hollow like this piece is, to be sure that it's completely dried on the inside. I did have supports inside here, and when you do have supports inside a hollow print, it is pretty crammed inside with stuff, and it would take a while for the moisture to completely get out. So that's not the easiest thing to do, is to completely dry it on the inside. So I'm sure, you know, if that claim is true, that's the reason why this happened. It wasn't completely dried when I cured it. So that's something to consider as you're getting into 3D printing, is to weigh the pros and cons of using water washable versus the other type. I've chosen water washable at this point because isopropyl alcohol, which is the preferred way to clean off resin, is still not that readily available. It's slowly becoming more available now, and there are other cleaners that people have used with resin, but I don't know, I've tried them, and I didn't find they worked as well. So that's why I'm currently using them. I have enough that I need to just work through the bottle and see how this goes. So as I gain more experience with printing, I'll let you know how that all worked out. So let's go ahead now and move on with Nomad. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is to add some detailing here, and if you look at the studio mock-up of Nomad, you'll notice that he's got these striations, or like grills, down each of these corners. So what I've done is I've purchased this V-grooved styrene plastic that I'm going to be using here. So I just need to cut the strips to the proper width and glue them on. Okay, well, all the parts are primed now, and I've got the side panels in place. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and paint the body black first before applying a silver color, just for the sake of light blocking. Probably don't need it, but I thought it'd be a good idea to do that. And as for the other pieces, as I've watched the episode, it looks like these pieces are supposed to just be gray. So these are going to be a gray color while the body is silver. And I believe the top part of the antenna is also silver, along with these probes. Okay, so I have all the parts primed now, and I wanted just to show you how the detailing is supposed to be arranged along the neck here. These are reference pictures that I took just snapping them while watching the episode, and you can see it gives a pretty good idea of how they're supposed to be displayed. So this is the way they are arranged on the top of the model now. Now, to glue these into place, I'm going to be using a 2-part epoxy. That's the same stuff I used for the side panels. The reason I'm using that is just to give me a bit more time to get the piece into place. If I use super glue, it'd be just too fast. So, so the 2-part epoxy is working pretty well for that. As for painting now, it's not very complicated. It's just going to be a neutral gray, and the body is going to be silver. So the sides of the body will be silver. The top part's going to be neutral gray, as well as the head, neck, and this bottom part. And I believe the top part of this antenna is supposed to be silver as well. Okay, while these details now are setting, I wanted to show you how the lights were going to work. This is the block that I'm going to be using for the mega size SMDs. They will be lighting up the upper section. So we'll place one mega size SMD on each side here. I have this styrene rod glued into place, as well as this piece, which is going to act as a stopper. And the idea is to feed this through the hole, and we'll have glue on that styrene sheet so we can hold this into place and let it set. And once that is secured, we can go ahead and snap this off and glue our neck piece into place. Okay, getting you caught up here now. This is how things are looking. I've painted the body now silver, and I'm going to give this some time to dry. I'm going to let that dry overnight. This is the way the rest of the pieces are looking. This looks a little dark to me. I'm going to have to look at the episode again and maybe paint these pieces a little bit different color. So I'll check that out and I'll get back to you in a second. Well, after going back and looking at the episode, the gray I had on was too dark, so I experimented with a couple colors, first starting with Tamiya's light ghost gray, but that was too blue, and I finally settled on Tester's dark ghost gray. So before I move on to lighting here, I wanted to make mention that I had to create a little detail here that is missing on the design, and this is a gentleman who created a life-size replica of Nomad. It's got a good picture of it here. It's kind of a rod type part with a larger piece that's striated there. I don't have anything that looks like that, but I was able to create the rod using just half round rods from Evergreen Scale Models, using a 1.5 and a 2.0 rod to create that. And then I happen to have this half pipe here. I'm not sure where I got this from. I think it was just from a train store a long time ago. Anyway, I have this in my parts drawer. I just cut off a piece of that to create that half ring that goes there, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint that silver. So I'm going to let this dry and paint it the same color as everything else, and yeah, we're pretty much ready to move on to the lighting after that. Okay, well, so again, using this textured plastic, this is again supposed to simulate water. I'm using this as a diffuser to put behind these open panels so that when you look through there, you'll just see the light glowing through and not see any wires and stuff. At least help to obscure that anyway. So what I've done is I've cut a piece now to the proper length here, and just using masking tape I've sectioned off the areas that need to be painted. So we're not going to paint anything below this line here, but this side is going to be yellow and this is going to be red using Tamiya's clear colors. Okay, well I have the 4 textured pieces ready to go and I have them individually numbered. I did that just in case there was any difference from one side to the next. They were pretty much all the same, but I just wanted to be sure I could account for any differences there. So what I'm going to do now is use a 2-part epoxy to glue these into place. I'll put it about right here, and that should be enough to hold everything in place there. Once that is secured, I'll go ahead and mount the green lights first, and then the upper ones for this top section. Now, I did find out doing a light test, and by the way, I think it's going to turn out pretty well. I was encouraged by the way it was looking. An SMD on each side is going to be too much. In fact, it's so bright you can see a single light coming back at you when you look through these panels. So what I'm going to do is install 2 SMDs instead, one on each side of this facing up at this white piece of plastic, and that actually is enough to disperse the light and give us enough illumination for the entire top section. Alright, before installing the lights, I wanted to give you a quick summary again here, and I know it looks like a jumbled mess right now because there's a bunch of wires all over the place, but all of this was purchased from ModelTrainSoftware.com. They worked with me to come up with this system here. These are 4 different panels now that we'll install in each of these little windows. They have a board here that allows the lights to blink in sequence like you see there. And then I have the lights that will be illuminating the upper section. Now, if you recall from earlier in the video, these were attached to a block of wood. The idea there, again, was because I thought I would need one for each of these sections, and it also turns out, however, that I need to position the lights lower because when I have them right up here, you can really see the lights coming through each of these windows. So what I did was I took away the block just to make more room here since we don't need that, and attached them to a flat piece of styrene. This is just a thinner piece of styrene there to disperse the light a little bit more. And then this is positioned so that when we slide this through, it'll allow us to put the lights where we need them. And let me go ahead and quickly demonstrate this. I'm going to turn this off. And let me turn on the other switch here. Make sure we get this going here. There we go. I'm going to create a little shadow here because we're getting some backlight. And you can see that it does a very nice job at illuminating that top section. Now, because they are where they are, we're also getting some illumination here. However, this is going to be blocked by the other sets of lights, and I've also painted them black on the back side there to prevent any possible illumination coming through the white styrene. Now, I actually am looking into another soundboard. I know I thought I'd made up my mind about using that particular soundboard that I have, but as I'm messing with it, the buttons look a little bit flimsy, so there is another source called 123 Electronics. I'll put the link here. They make all kinds of soundboards as well as other things, and the buttons look a bit sturdier there, and there is still a possibility that we could hook these up so that they will activate with his voice, so I'm looking into that as well. Now, whether he's another soundboard or not is not going to affect these green lights, so I'm going to proceed with the installation of this first. And so what I think I'm going to do is keep them illuminated. That will allow me to be able to know where to position them in the window. I'll secure them in place with masking tape first, and then maybe I'll use hot glue since that would be the quickest way to get some adhesion there, and follow that up with some 2-part epoxy. Okay guys, well, before putting everything together, I did get the other speaker in, and I wanted to show you how this is working. And just ignore the humming that you hear in the background, that's just the 3D printer going. What I've got now is a larger power source. We have 4 buttons, so this allows us to record 4 sound bites. And the power source is definitely large enough to power our light. What we've got wired in here is are the wires that were provided by Model Train software that I purchased from them. And this is essentially a little regulator here because what's coming off here is AC and these are powered by DC. So this helps to convert that. And let's go ahead and give it a shot. Alright, so we've got everything synced up here, and I'm very excited about that. Okay guys, well this will be the last you see of him until the final reveal. I'm going to go ahead and install the lights and put him together, and then we'll work on the stand. Alright, so the base that you see here is something that came with the Dragon Models Superman figure, which I painted a couple years ago now. And so this has just been sitting in my stash. I didn't think this was a sturdy enough base for that figure, so I've just been saving it all this time, and I think this is a good model to use it for. So it's hollow on the underside here. I've actually taken out some of these supports to make room for the speaker. And then we've got the circuit board, which will go on this side, and then the batteries, and then the buttons to power his voice, and the other lights will be mounted on this side here. So what I'd like to do is actually paint this so that it kind of is styled with the look of the original series. So I think what I'll do is I'll leave this top section black, but I'm debating painting the side here either red like the bridge controls were painted, the bridge console, or that light blue color that you see all over the ship. So just kind of decide on that, but what I'm going to do next is start to drill the holes for all the momentary switches, which I purchased these to replace the ones that came with the speaker. So we're going to mount these over here, and then of course we'll have a separate push switch for the green lights. stands come along pretty well. You can see I decided on the red and black paint scheme, and I applied a black pinstripe here along the edge just with some pinstriping tape. And I'm ready to now attach the buttons. But one thing I wanted to point out were these holes that I created for the speaker. As you can see, they're not very symmetrical. There was a hole here to begin with, and this, as you remember, was a stand for the Superman figure. And so this is where the wire that attaches, that holds up the figure, was supposed to go into. So around that I drilled out some holes, and you can see they're not very symmetrical and don't look very attractive. So I was trying to think of a way to conceal those. I wanted to hide them, and I came up with this, which is a little replica of the intercom that you see on the Enterprise. So this was just created using a 2mm piece of styrene plastic. I just cut out a window, and for the cloth that you see in the middle now, I was just walking around my garage trying to think of something to use as some sort of cloth I was going to put in there, and came across next to the trash can a folded up used dryer softener cloth. And so what I did was I painted it silver and used some tacky glue, as you can see here in this video, and it worked out really well. So for the button here, I found an extra R2-D2 head from a Bandai kit, and I just sanded it clear of any details. I used a scribing tool to create that line, and yeah, I think it's going to work pretty well to conceal those holes. So I have all the wires hooked in, and everything is working perfectly. I even have the mounting post drying, as I've used JB Weld to secure it into place. I'm going to give this ample time to dry and harden, and then comes final assembly of Nomad. So I'm ready to wrap this project up. I will show you the final reveal in just a second. Okay, so this is now the completed 3D model of Nomad based on the robot seen in the original series episode The Changeling. The replica measures 11 3/4 inches high and about almost 2.5 inches wide. The file for this can be found on Thingiverse and designed by Owl Pokemon. The link to the file is in my video description below. So overall, I'm very pleased with how everything turned out, although this was a build with a number of challenges. Just to review, the biggest challenge was probably printing the main body, and that was mainly due to my inexperience with 3D printing. But the take home here is just don't make it so large that it pushes it to the edges of your build plate. If you recall, that led to numerous issues, and just please see part 1 of this series just to get an explanation and to gain some further details about that part of the process. One thing I would suggest the designer consider is to make the walls a little bit thicker to help with stability. Now, the other challenge was the sound board, and again, this was mainly due to my inexperience here. This is the one thing I definitely learned about, and because of this, I am planning on adding sound to future projects. I was always intimidated at the thought of adding a soundboard for some reason, but it is fairly straightforward. And here, as you can see, the lights are synced with the sound by simply having them directly attached to the speaker's metal housing. Now, I don't know much about electronics, but apparently the current coming from the speaker is AC, while the LEDs are DC. It's a minor concern, but this situation could wear down the LEDs over time, so Shelley at Evans Designs recommended I add a reverse current protector. Not extremely critical since the LEDs aren't continuously running, but they thought it was a good precaution. So thanks, Shelley, for all your help. So as you saw, I started out with a cheaper soundboard, which works great for the sound, actually. It's really not bad for what you're getting there, but just wasn't powerful enough for the lights. If you recall, the batteries were small, and they didn't give any juice for any of the LEDs that I tried. So I replaced it with a model from electronics123.com, which, by the way, were a pleasure to deal with. I will put the link down below in the video's description. They have a support option, by the way, in their phone menu when you call, and they're there to answer your questions. They were extremely helpful. The soundboard is loaded digitally using a program they provide for free. Wasn't too hard to learn, just make sure you read the instructions thoroughly versus skimming through them like I did. Believe me, that will save you some time. So Nomad has 4 sound bites that I've recorded, and I wanted to make them just a short sound bite so that it didn't go on too long. And so I went through the episode, and the toughest part was try to find sound bites without music or background music playing. So these are the ones I came up with. First, there is
I am Nomad. I am Nomad.
And then we go on to
Non sequitur.
And this next soundbite I like because you can actually pretend to be Kirk talking in this scene. So here we go.
You are from the third planet.
Yes.
A planet with one large natural satellite.
Yes.
The planet is called Earth.
Yes.
You are the creator. But Kirk, the sterilization procedure against your ship was unnecessary.
And this last soundbite now is of Nomad going berserk. Okay, well, a real quick word about the lighting now. They were all purchased from Evans Designs, and I had a little trouble, by the way, with one of the lines getting disconnected during the final assembly. This is the little board that provides the effect with the green lights. My mistake, though, as I was trying to jam it into the main body, and it just so happened it detached, but luckily I was able to reattach it by soldering the point back onto the board. There are 12 pico-size SMDs used for this effect, and I think they work really well. The 3 voice LEDs are simply mega-size SMDs. Lastly, the color scheme is pretty simple here, just gray and silver. The head and the bottom of the model is painted with Tester's Dark Ghost Gray, and Tamiya's Mica Silver, or Mica Silver, was used for the body. The base, again, was a base that was provided with the Superman Dragon model. This is a picture of the Superman model, by the way, if you're curious. This came with a round base, which was not very good for the model. It was too heavy of a model for it, so it's something I just happened to have in my stash, and it worked out really well. I thought it'd be cool to hide the speaker holes with the little intercom replica that I made there. It looks like the ones that you see on the Enterprise, and I think that worked out well. And lastly, I added one other touch here, which is a 3D printed sign that my friend Marc Fraley had designed for me, showing the name of the episode, and also a little diagram there of Nomad as he originally appeared when he was launched from Earth. The 4 push switches or momentary switches were purchased off of eBay. I'll provide the link for that as well. And the green lights are controlled by the little push switch that is from Evans Designs. Okay guys, well I hope you enjoyed following along in this project. Real quickly before we leave here, I want to make a note about adding sound to your projects. If you're interested in doing that, there is actually a video that Boyd at TrekWorks has that shows you how to convert one of those inexpensive boards to allow for a larger power source. So I watched the video, it looks very doable. It was pointed out to me after I had already purchased the other one, so that's why I didn't do it that way. But certainly for my next project, I'll probably give that a shot. So check it out. I'll have a link posted below. So I am here in my red shirt just to prove to you that the guy in the red shirt can stand right next to Nomad and not have any fear. Right, Nomad?
I am Nomad. I